Hey there, I just want to take a few minutes and talk about Google's change from Google Webmaster Guidelines to Google Search Essentials. So they've renamed it Google Search Essentials from the original document, Google Webmaster Guidelines. Recognizing that in 2 decades things have changed a lot on the internet and especially with Google Search. So I'm going to just take a look here at what we see in this article that Google provide and break down what some of it means. So let's just jump into it. So they highlight here 3 main areas: technical requirements, spam policies, and key best practices. So it's interesting, the 3 categories that they list, the order that they list them in, and some of the things that they talk about. So technical requirements. This section is talking a lot about just some of the performance and how Google interacts with the site, making sure that you can crawl all of the pages, that there are no roadblocks, that instructions are clear and signals are clear, and it gives you like a bare minimum set of technical requirements. So technical SEO doesn't get as much attention as it probably should, but still very important in modern search. Spam policies. Now, of course, everybody hates spam, and Google pays a lot of attention at trying to reduce and mitigate the effects of spam on the web. So specific spam policies, be aware of them, make sure you're not falling foul of them, just be aware of some of the things that they're looking at. Helps us get some direction on the areas that Google's looking at and some future algorithm updates that may come related to that. Next, I want to focus, I'm going to spend more time on this key best practices, and they cite quite a few things here. Now, it's really, before we jump into the best practices, we should be aware that best practices are just that. However, it's quite common that a generic best practice isn't necessarily best practice in a specific niche. So you should always test, you should always do competitive research and analysis, make sure you know what's working in your niche. Just because a best practice says do X doesn't mean you shouldn't do Y if it works better in your niche. So little disclaimer there, but generally best practices are just that, with the caveat that you should make sure they are pertinent and applicable to your niche. So the first thing they talk about here is helpful content, and it's no surprise they recently rolled out their helpful content update, which is really just making sure that you're producing good quality content that is going to deliver what they're trying to what their mission is, what they're trying to deliver for their users in search. So makes perfect sense, fairly broad and general, as a lot of these things are, but it just shows you that this is one of the most important things, and it's something they're putting a lot of emphasis in. So as SEOs, we should consider that and address that. Next here, just general good on-page practice, making sure that you're talking about the things that your page is about. And it still surprises me to this day, after 24 years of doing SEO, that very often the title isn't reflected in the body content, and someone says, well, why don't I rank for this? And you search for it on their page and they mention it maybe once or not at all. Really common, really easy to address. You just got to make sure you have a clear picture of what your site, what your page is about, what your content's talking about, and that you are actually mentioning those words on the page. So they talk about the title and the main heading of the page. Other descriptive locations, such as the image alt text, that's just low-hanging fruit. If you've got a bunch of empty alt tags, you should change that. You should check for it. I really like Christina's SEO Pro extension. I've got that here. You should use this tool, and it shows you if there's empty alt tags anywhere. I really like that. It's really useful. Make your links crawlable so that Google can find all the other pages on your site. That's more of a technical SEO best practice. Of course, you want to do that. It's also surprising sometimes how many dead links there are on a site. You can use a crawler like SEMrush or Screaming Frog to find those things. I also like this Check My Links plugin here. It highlights what links are good and bad, what ones are redirects. So it's actually quite common to see people link to a redirecting URL with a trailing slash or without it. So that's something that you want to be aware of. Tell people about your site, be active in communities. This speaks to a little bit like what Rand was talking about with the sort of brand mentions and just sort of not traditional links, but there's just buzz around a brand, and that's got to be a signal at some point, whether it's really a ranking factor or not. Has been argued and will be argued, but it's a positive signal and a symptom of a quality site. So if you have other content, and they talk about structured data here, they've come out and said some recent statements that structured data is helpful. They've said that it's not a ranking factor, but also, if you can help Google understand what your site's about, you should be doing that, whether it's going to make a difference in your rankings or not. You want to provide as much of a strong signal and as much data as possible. And then the last one here, just controlling how your site appears in search. So recently, or more recently over the last couple of years, Google's added more and more parameters in that can give you some control over how your site's going to be viewed in Google search. So that's also something to be aware of. So just wanted to quickly review that. This is a good document. I recommend everybody read it. It just gives you a little bit more of a window into what's important in Google, and I think it was useful and timely that they updated this, just recognizing that a lot has changed with the web and with Google search over the past 2 decades. So I'll put a link to this, do some reading on it, and happy reading.